that the Corps doesn't know how many total projects you have?
That's correct, sir.
I'm going to come back to this, but I'm, you know, God gave me the right to remain silent, but not the ability.
There's a tension between project delivery and district sustainment that we want to break.
So you're doing it for transparency reasons, is that right?
That's correct, sir. That's one of the reasons.
You just moved $1.4 billion out of other projects to the Everglades. Who told you to do that?
The law that included that for which those funds were derived.
Who told you to do that?
The law gave us flexibility to
You did that on your own? That's your testimony? You made that decision?
Yes, sir, I did.
And nobody told you to do it?
No, sir.
What projects did you take that $1.4 billion? You took it out of the West Shore project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir.
You took it out of the Lake Pontchartrain project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir. That project is underway.
You took it out of the Comite project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir, I did not.
I have protected you and the Corps every step of the way up here. I have defended the Corps when some of my colleagues wanted to dog cuss you and change you, and I have defended you. You can't spit in my face and tell me it's raining. Secretary Tell, you just moved $1.4 billion out of other projects to the Everglades. Who told you to do that?
Chairman Kennedy, thank you for the question. The law that included that for which those funds were derived gave the Army the flexibility to reallocate funds, and in many cases, these projects were appropriated.
Who told you to do that?
The law gave us flexibility to.
You did that on your own? That's your testimony?
We followed the notification procedures that were required under that law.
Yeah, but you made that decision?
Yes, sir, I did.
And nobody told you to do it?
No, sir.
Okay. Where'd you get that 1.4? And you're asking for more money now for the Everglades, is that right?
Well, Senator, there's $46 billion.
Are you asking for more money now?
The president's budget includes $446 million for Everglades restoration. That's correct, sir.
In addition to the $1.4 billion that you just took out of other projects?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. What projects did you take that $1.4 billion for the Everglades out of?
Senator, I'd have to get back to you on the sources.
You don't remember?
There's multiple. There are multiple sources, but
yeah,
the sources were
which ones?
They were from past acts like the Infrastructure and Job Creation Act, the BBA 18, and DRSA.
You took it out of the West Shore project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir.
You took it out of the Lake Pontchartrain project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir. That project is underway.
You took it out of the Comite project in Louisiana, didn't you?
No, sir, I did not.
You took it out of a project in East Baton Rouge Parish, didn't you?
No, sir.
How about the Grand Isle project?
No, sir, that project.
You're telling me you didn't take any money out of these at anybody's instruction to spend on the Everglades while you're asking for even more Everglades money in the current budget?
Senator, the projects that you just listed in Louisiana are all on track. Those are great projects. We've been working to deliver those.
So your testimony is that you, on your own, nobody told you to do it. You took money out of these projects, but they're still on course to spend extra money in the Everglades. Is that your testimony, Mr. Secretary?
No, sir. That is not my testimony.
Okay. Tell me what your testimony is then.
There are aged funds throughout, the $46 billion total in aged funds, some of them more than 10 years old. This is a disgrace. I mean, we have $46 billion that Congress has provided to us that we haven't found the ability to execute. There are other projects that do have the ability to execute. And when we have aged funds that can be applied to something that will save lives and protect critical ecosystem restoration projects, those are things that where we use the authorities that have been provided.
I'm going to come back to this, but I'm, you know, God gave me the right to remain silent, but not the ability. You know, I have protected you and the Corps every step of the way up here. I have defended the Corps when some of my colleagues wanted to dog cuss you and change you, and I have defended you. But I don't understand this moving money to the Everglades, and we're going to have a prayer session about that. You want to talk about how best to make the Corps efficient? Tell us the truth. I don't believe you did this alone, Mr. Secretary. I think somebody told you to do it.
Mr. Chairman, we'll be happy to.
Wait a minute, Mr. Secretary, I'm talking. I want to know who it was, and I want to know why you did it. And I don't believe you that this money didn't come out of somebody's hide. Okay? You can't spit in my face and tell me it's raining. That's how I feel. Your district salaries and expenses project, give us a 30 or 40 second overview like you're talking to a 10th grader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The way that the Corps of Engineers has received funds from Congress and budgeted has been by project, year over year. We have 39 civil works districts across the country. That's the large part of our staff. The headquarters footprint is very small. Our workforce is spread out. The way that we pay the salaries of those employees is by allowing them to bill to the project. So every project has a labor cost, the cost of the people that are working on that project, and a delivery cost, like a contract to execute the project by.
I get it. How do you want to do it differently?
The FY27 President's budget recommends separating the labor costs from the project costs, both to give you transparency so that you understand what portion of each project is tied to labor, as well as to break the incentive that we believe exists between project.
Have you ever heard a senator stop a hearing cold and demand one simple question? Who told you to do that? That's exactly what happened when Senator John Kennedy confronted Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll over a stunning decision involving $1.4 billion moved to the Everglades. Kennedy wanted answers, and what followed turned into a heated showdown over government spending, Louisiana projects, and billions of taxpayer dollars sitting untouched. The hearing exploded almost immediately. I watched Senator Kennedy zero in on one issue: who approved moving $1.4 billion from other projects to the Everglades. The Secretary insisted the law gave the Army flexibility to reallocate funds and repeatedly testified that the decision was made internally. But Kennedy wasn't buying it. He pressed harder, asking whether money had been pulled from Louisiana projects like West Shore, Lake Pontchartrain, and East Baton Rouge developments. Each time the answer was the same: no, those projects remain on track. Still, Kennedy kept circling back to one point: did you really do this on your own? Then came the moment that changed the tone of the hearing. Kennedy reminded the Secretary that he had defended the Army Corps of Engineers for years. And then he delivered the line that instantly grabbed attention. You can't spit in my face and tell me it's raining. That wasn't just frustration. It was Kennedy signaling that he believed there was more to the story. He openly questioned whether someone higher up directed the transfer and demanded to know who, if anyone, gave the order. If you're following government spending hearings and accountability stories like this, click subscribe and stay with me for more major capital updates.
There's a tension between project delivery and district sustainment that we want to break.
So you're doing it for transparency reasons, is that right?
That's correct, sir. That's one of the reasons.
How is it going to be more transparent if you just have a new entry that says salaries?
Well, Senator, it's because...
How are you going to know what salary goes with what project?
Well, Senator, in the previous way that was budgeted and appropriated, there was no information about salaries, none whatsoever. It was just the project. And so it's more transparent, and then it pulls the salaries out of the projects. That before, it was just a project cost, and there was no bifurcation. And so that's why it's more transparent, because it provides more information. This is a rare case where the executive branch is excitedly sharing more information with the legislative branch.
Well, will you have internal data that shows how much salary is attributable to a particular project?
Yes, Senator, we've published that information for fiscal year 26 work plan, as well as the fiscal year 27 budget request. We've shared that information with your committee, and we've also briefed your committee staff on the back-end accounting system that can track it over the course of time so that we can keep up with project costs.
Have you shared that information with all the members of Congress about the projects in their districts?
Senator, in sharing the FY27 budget request, we shared it, and we have published the split, and we've shared it with every relevant committee in Congress and anyone who's asked.
Okay. So as I understand it, Mr. Secretary, right now, There's no column for salaries and expenses.
That's correct,
It's
sir.
attributable,
For the districts, that's correct.
right, it's just included in each project.
That's correct,
right?
sir.
And now you're going to break it out.
Yeah,
Go ahead, General.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're correct.
It'll still be by project. So before there was one lump sum for each project. Now it'll be for the project delivery, the contract, as Mr. Tell spoke to, and then the internal use labor. But it'll still be by project, broken out that way. So each project, you'll see what the in-house labor bill is.
Okay, so for each project, labor and expenses will still be a line item.
Senator, the
But
way,
in terms of the budget, salaries and expenses will be, have its own category, is that right?
yes, sir, that's correct.
How's that going to help the Corps with its overall missions?
Senator, it's gonna help the Corps by incentivizing delivery. What I've heard from commanders in the field is that they're,
How does that incentivize delivery?
bec-
I'm not doubting you, I just don't understand how.
well, today, it is, as I said in my opening statement, when a commander sees that a project that's a cash cow for that district is gonna continue next year, it solves a lot of that district commander's management challenges with his staff, because the funding continues and continues, and if the funding expires, quite often Congress will appropriate additional funding. And so projects become lines of revenue for districts, and someone has to make the business decisions about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for the district. That tension, if we eliminate, if we take that off the table, that idea that we need to keep projects alive to keep the district healthy, it will solely focus our commanders and our workforce on delivery. That's how it incentivizes delivery. Today, there's an incentive for projects to be extended or to pull projects off the shelf that may not.
But, Mr. Secretary, you've got that data right now, don't you?
Yes, sir, we do.
So you can tell, can you not, when a district manager's gaming the system?
Certainly, in theory, we could and we will going forward, but this question had never been asked before.
What question is that?
The question about how much, at scale, the question about how much of our project budgets were going towards salaries.
I just don't understand how coming up with a new line item for salaries and expenses is going to make our lives better if you already have the data anyway,
Senator,
except it's not listed in the budget.
you're absolutely, in many ways, you're correct. We have the ability administratively, even if you appropriate the way that you've previously appropriated, we have the ability administratively to build what I would call a cardboard firewall between salaries and expenses and project costs. What we're asking the committee to do is help us build a brick firewall so that the demonstration throughout the leadership in Washington is that we're serious about making sure we account for project costs and labor costs, and we can make rational decisions on each side. Right now, that commingling, if we don't go all the way with the Appropriations Committee, our partners here, in my view, that commingling will still ultimately find its way through that cardboard firewall.
All right. I'll be glad to read anything you want to send me. I just don't get it. Sounds to me like it's a distinction without a difference, but maybe that's my shortcoming. You testified in front of the Senate Environmental Public Works Committee that the Corps has $15 billion on your books that's over 6 years old. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Why is that? I mean, is the money not obligated, or is it projects that are closed? I don't understand. Can you explain to me?
Senator, that's correct. I mentioned earlier $46 billion worth of funds on our books that are unobligated. I mean, this is any other agency, this would be unacceptable, but it's somehow become okay.
Now, how much is it again?
There's $46 billion total, $46 billion total, $15 billion that's more than 10 years old. And quite often the funding that's aged, and we're doing an analysis that we'll be happy to share with you and your team. As soon as this hearing is over, I've directed my team that we are to understand every color of money within that $46 billion. Some of it is unobligated because we, at some point in our past, told Congress that a particular project was shovel-ready. Congress provided funding to it, usually in the wake of disasters, and it turned out that the project The study that would have built the project is 10 or 20 years old and needed to be updated. So then you get back to studying. And when you get back to studying, you get back to negotiating with the locals about what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, how you're going to do it, and who's going to pay for it. So quite often, this funding gets hung up in these types of round and round discussions. Sometimes the community says, hey, we're not interested anymore. Sometimes the Corps says we need more money to actually do the project. So the goal that we have about putting that $46 billion to use for its intended purpose, or if it can't be used for its intended purpose, maybe putting it to use in a state like Louisiana. I think
my point, Mr. Secretary, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but my point is at some point, somebody's got to make a decision,
that's right, sir.
okay? And either close it out and put it somewhere else. Don't just leave it hanging around.
You're absolutely right.
Did I understand you to say earlier that the Corps doesn't know how many total projects you have?
That's correct, sir.
And it could be between 1,000 and 10,000?
I think it's probably closer to 10,000, but that's correct.
But you don't know.
We don't know. But we have a counter.
I'm sorry?
We have someone who's counting them today. We've hired someone just to unearth how many authorized projects are out there. There's a provision in WRDA that says, hey, go look at projects that haven't received funding, haven't been alive or had a pulse for 20 years, and recommend them for deauthorization. But we don't know the total universe, and that's unfortunate.
The hearing then shifted into something even bigger. The Secretary revealed the Army Corps has $46 billion in unobligated funds. Even more shocking? About $15 billion is more than 6 years old. Kennedy called the situation a disgrace. The explanation was that some projects stalled after funding was approved, studies became outdated, negotiations dragged on, or local communities lost interest. But Kennedy pushed back. His point was simple. At some stage, government has to decide whether to finish projects, move the money, or shut them down, not leave billions hanging in limbo. The discussion then moved to how project salaries and expenses are tracked. The Corps wants to separate labor costs from project costs to create what officials described as greater transparency and stronger accountability. But Kennedy remained skeptical. He argued that if the data already exists internally, creating another budget category may not solve the deeper problem. To him, the question wasn't paperwork. It was whether the system actually delivers projects efficiently and honestly. By the end of the hearing, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about the Everglades. It became a debate over who controls federal spending, how billions are managed, and whether taxpayers are getting straight answers. And Kennedy made it clear, this conversation is far from over.